And here we are with our Winston gameplay. Were you in any sort of stack for this, or was this just you solo queue? Okay, cool. This is a reasonable Winston start. You are playing with Zarya as your duo partner. That's a pretty good one right now. And you're playing with a Junk Ashe, and you don't know what you're playing into yet, so that's just fine.
2, 1. Attackers incoming. Stop the payload.
I like the patience. That just told you something noise-wise, but you still need to feel for where the card is.
Right.
You see that, but you pretty much have to let that go. You'd never enter from this direction. And now you're gonna go. Good.
My ultimate is charging.
Debatable. So I like it. You're getting some good value here, but if we're being nitpicky, I look at this. Do you think anyone had seen you yet?
Yeah, no one saw me. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have bubbled.
Well, you definitely shouldn't have bubbled. I don't think you've bubbled here yet. You're going to bubble, and I know that, and it's a little early because it then limits your range when no one's looking at you. I'm okay with this leap, but the leap is a little bit like, hey, you could have potentially walked a little closer on them still and then had your leap in case you needed to leave, et cetera, et cetera. Like, these guys are in, this is a terrible place for them to be, right? Like, this is in a bad place, et cetera. So you might want to still have your leap here, but I'm okay with this for now. Definitely too early on the bubble. And now you've got a situation of, hey, you're going to push them, that's fine, hit your melee, and you just have to leave. And, you know, some of why you have to leave is because of your bubble there, and I assume you're immediately going to jump up to the high ground. Good. Less good, but right idea. So if we just look at that, it's mostly just going to be a case of realizing what the status is, and you peeked too deep here. So if we go here, we're being pretty micro. Okay, they need to know you're here, and it's okay that they know you're here, but you know that Hog still has his hook because you were just fighting Hog, right? So, like, even if he used his hook up here at the beginning, etc., you know that for the last 5 seconds he hasn't used his hook because if he had, A, you'd have seen it, and B, it probably would have been on you. So he probably has hook back. You actually want them to acknowledge that you're up here, but you don't really want to be zapping into a Bastion and a Hog. Like, there's armor on this. This has a bajillion health and is full health. This can hook you. You're really more in a, hey, don't forget that I'm here and that I could threaten you type situation. I don't actually think there's a finish to be had here. I think this is purely a, I want you to remember that I'm here, so you're antsy and so that you're aware that I'm here and so that you're halfway looking up here in case one of my teammates from here wants to peek, do something, etc. Does that sort of make sense?
It does.
Okay, cool. And you come back on D.Va because they're on Bastion, I assume?
Right.
Okay. No, Bastion fair, reasonable. Back a little further. So, good to go after Pharah here. I'm not convinced you needed to use the boosters, but it's totally fine that you did. This just becomes a, hey, where are you going to land? And I don't love the concept of landing here. Generally, landing on angled high ground like this is correct, except that with the Bastion, do you know where the Bastion is right now at this moment in time?
I don't.
Yeah. So my concern would be, I'd be concerned that the Bastion is like over on cart or something, because that would be a kind of likely place for him. And if that's the case, I'm definitely not safe up here, right? Whereas I am safe if I, do my little shoot at her and then end up back here, I can just go behind sign and I'm safe and I can, relearn the situation, etc. Whereas if there's a Bastion on cart, you're pretty much immediately going to have to drop here and it's just kind of messy. You're likely to lose your mech, etc. So I'd have preferred that you'd ended this back here rather than where I think you end it, which is This right here, your boosters, which I think is on the sign. Usually, again, on the sign would be good. And I think you're challenging this Anna too hard. Like, I see you're going for these micro missiles, but this isn't a finish. This is like you diving an Anna. This Anna's full health. This Anna, as far as you know, has cooldowns. You've already used your boosters. You don't know where the Bastion is. If you were going in for a finish on an Anna that was already low health because your Ashe had, headshot body shot it or something like that, and you're just like, oh sure, let me go in and finish it real quick, that I can handle. D.Va is not a dive someone who's at full health unless they have to be removed type hero though. Like, she can go, hey, I have to remove this hit scan for my team to push, but you're not like I'm gonna go in and get this assassination type hero. Like, yes, she can do it, but it's not the strongest role for D.Va. You're much better on positions like this where you go, hey, I'm going to Matrix, or on positions like this where you go, hey, I'm going to Matrix, and maybe I'm going to go into finish, or maybe I'm going to go in with another tank, etc. You don't just want to dive full health heroes even when you have your micro missiles, unless it's primarily for the purpose of, hey, if you were attacking, for example, there's a soldier right here and he's just doing too much work, so let me dive him because I need him not working on my team. Okay. Here, you're using a bunch of Matrix to fight an Anna. Anna is not the thing that's giving your team a lot of trouble right now. Bastion is the thing that you'd be worried about. You're using, 7/8 of your Matrix to fight this Anna, and it's good that you get to eat there on the sleep dart, but you didn't know where the Bastion was, and whether the Bastion had been on cart or actually down here, that Bastion was going to demech you if you were using your Matrix on the Anna. So, not a big deal.
Bailing out.
I'm not sure you heard the Lucio coming, but that's okay. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a regroup onto actually take this as 6.
다시 한판 해보자고.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Enemy in my sight.
Left here, good. It's a little late there, but that's fine. Was there a reason you were DMing that? Were you expecting like a nade to come in on top of it or something, or a sleep dart maybe?
I was just expecting healing from Anna, from the enemy Anna.
Okay.
So I was thinking maybe I could.
Sure.
Get through this.
Okay.
I'm going to shoot you down.
You guys have battled for positioning enough here. It's time to make this dive. Were there any comms going on for this dive, or is this just you going, hey, now I think is the moment?
Just now I think is the moment.
Okay, so let's get a feel for whether that was actually true. Your hog is definitely not going to be helping you with this Bastion, right?
Right.
Your lamp is being used in a place where it can't help you fight the Bastion. If your lamp is being used here, yeah, your team's totally fighting the Bastion. Your lamp is being used in a place where it doesn't really help you fight the Bastion. So basically, when I look at this, the only person who could possibly follow up on your Bastion dive would be your Junkrat, and that's if he uses a mine to go in. Like, your defense matrix only lasts 2 seconds if you hard DM over him, etc. And that's, so you'll be in there for 2.5, maybe 3 seconds. You're not going to get the Anna get the Bastion in this time. And you're the most important piece on your team for handling the Bastion, so it's really a shame for you to lose your mech here. I know this is turning a little into a D.Va thing, but D.Va's like the biggest component of holding back Bastion in the comp that you guys are using, probably more so than Lamp. So this is just one of those things where you just needed to check where your team was a bit more, because you are the initiation tank, the main tank in this setup. That's not usually D.Va's role, but against Bastion, that's kind of what you're doing. So
Okay.
this is just early, and it's unfortunate because, you do then cancel your boosters and don't go hard in. Okay, I thought you were going to hard in there. Now you can hard in. That's fine. Beautiful.
Time to raise my APM.
killing this hard, but that's fine. So, let's talk about that self-destruct. It's pretty minor, but we'll do it.
Nerf this.
Well, we'll do it a little more.
Time to raise my APM.
Okay. I get it. You're at 127 HP. You feel like you're about to lose your mech and you don't have boosters, so you can't throw it into a better position. Because even like here in this doorway would be a better position, right?
Right.
But do you lose anything, like literally anything, by waiting until you actually lose that 127 HP and then self-destruct versus self-destructing now?
No.
Right.
Just
So, oh, go ahead.
just like ult charge for the hog, but
Yeah, but even that is like, hey, this hog is already a nanoed hog. I'd kind of like him to waste a little more time chewing through my mech's health while he's nanoed. It's a little more time off of his nano. But also, maybe the situation will change. Maybe I'll somehow last 2 seconds and get boosters back and be able to throw my mech. It won't. You're not going to last that long, but that's sort of what we're going for. Maybe his next shot is going to be, too far off, and even though I have 127 HP, maybe he's going to hit a bad shot, etc. Maybe I'm going to get one more tick of Matrix out on him. Any of these things where it's sort of like, there's just really not, you're right, the only benefit is, hey, I denied him a little ult charge, but I think by the time this nano is over, he's going to have whole hog available anyways.
right.
I think this is a case where, again, I'm being nitpicky. I just don't think there was much value here because, again, you didn't even like body block him out with this self-destruct or anything. So this wasn't some like I'm doing it now because if I don't, he'll slip past type thing. There's nothing here.
I see. Yeah.
I'm too young to die.
Let them up.
Okay, so I don't really care about where this Lucio. I want to know where the Bastion is. Like, that is why you're on this hero right now. So now you've got a little more feel for the scene, where things are, etc. But you still want to be in sort of a hyper-aware where's the Bastion mode. You can contest this, etc., but you're really sort of going, I want to make sure I have lots of resource in case that Bastion appears, which you don't, because that's why I'm on this hero. And, I'd like to have boosters so I can dive the Bastion when he appears, because their Bastion, like, you'll generally just sort of win if their Bastion doesn't get value, right? Like, even with you not using your cooldowns, them having Bastion, if Bastion can't set up in turret mode and can't, do anything without instantly getting deleted, is sort of just throwing for their team. You're a low value diva if you hold your cooldowns, but until you know where that Bastion is, or if you know that that Bastion is in spawn and, just now coming back, etc., sure, then use your cooldowns, but I would very much be going, hey, where is this Bastion? And now that it's in spawn, that's fine, but I think it just went there unless I'm crazy. If it just went there, I'm talking too much. If it didn't just, yeah, it did just go there. Okay, so your hog got it. So it's the sort of thing where you really want to be finding that Bastion, because that's literally why you're on the hero, and you don't want them snowballing off of this.
APM 좀 올려볼까? Fully operational. Boosters engaged. Get through this. I'm gonna have to shoot you down.
Finish. End up on high ground. Nice.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Routing power to forward shield. Time to raise my APM.
Good eat. This has been a nice little sequence from you, other than the very beginning of it, where you were sort of doing super long-range poke on them and spending micro missiles for a not very good reason. I'll go over that, but the rest of this has been good. So if we go here,
Routing power to forward shield.
what are these accomplishing for you?
I guess it's just poke damage to build my ult.
Yeah, it's a little poke damage to build your ult. It's a little bit of pressure on the enemy team. it's not like, oh my god, worst thing in the world, etc. But you look at this and there's not going to really be follow up on this, right? Like, you're not going to get Junkrat nades in there. Okay, I see your Junkrat's trying, but you're not seriously going to get Junkrat nades in there. So I'm looking at this and kind of going, okay, you do this, that's fine. I'd kind of like to have those again for the actual sort of aggressive dive play that you're likely to make, because it is 7-8 seconds that you're going to be without missiles here. So that's not particularly useful. It's like using missiles to break a shield. It's not particularly useful. You can do it if shield break is what you're playing for, but you generally rather have those for going in to make a finish if someone is there, or to push, a hit scan out, or to dive that support that is already half health, etc. So I don't love that, but this is very good. You of course hit the block here. You recognize that you can stay on the purple hog, and you get the eat here. And you make him very unhappy. You have a little bit of a thing where you get lost for a moment on that wall, but that was a good sequence. Yeah. So ultimately, though, have you really succeeded? So you've succeeded in sort of diving and removing the Bastion and really being a part of that once, and that was with the Junkrat tire, right? That's
Right.
the only time that's happened so far?
Only time.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because, hey, they're now entering third, and while you started, the very first point on Winston, your first life you came back on D.Va, and the cart was here, and now the cart is here. And, you've won a fight between now and then, so it's not like, oh, this is terrible, etc., but, Bastion is why you're on D.Va. You can make Bastion's life a nightmare when you're on D.Va. It really is just about hitting those engagement timings, and you're not really doing that. You're doing some, hey, I'm going to do this long-range poke, then I don't have my missiles when I'm diving the Bastion. You did good stuff down here, don't get me wrong, that's fine, but this sort of becomes a, oh, hey, look, the Bastion's here, and we don't have a way to get on it. We're over here. The only one that worked was when we had the support of an ultimate. So this is going to be about engagement timings based on what we're seeing.
Okay. Makes sense.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
You can't decide where you want to go.
Taking off. Get through this.
Yeah. That's the type of thing that I like you to still have missiles for, because you're going in to finish, etc. And yes, most of your missiles got wasted here because you got them before that easily, etc. But that's generally what you want them for, more often. Yep.
Get home.
This should be easy cleanup, and you should be able to take better space now. So now that you've earned a bunch of space, where would you like to be set up as D.Va?
Top left or right behind the cart on that high ground over there.
Over here?
Yeah.
I like this. This is pretty darn good. This is okay. This is pretty good too. And oh, look, there's a Bastion here. And I actually didn't know that there'd be a Bastion here when I said this is pretty good too. It's just, hey, you've got some physical cover you can use, and you sort of dominate the space if you're here. You've got easy headshots, etc. It's not really easy to get up to you without movement because, hey, there's stairs and they're kind of a pain to get up to get to you. And you can control this whole corner, etc. You can back out to here. You can get healed from teammates that are back here pretty easy. This is sort of the power point for this half of the this is the power position for this half of the point. And you couldn't have taken it when you first came out of spawn, but now that you got those two limbs and you've kind of taken the space, this is sort of something that you want to be thinking about holding as your off angle as D.Va here. And it just so happens that that's also where you find your Bastion. I'm much more forgiving of those missiles because you're up people and they're not going to be pushing, etc. So it literally is just farm, though you do already have your ult. But pressure's still pressure. Okay. We're not going to talk about diva bombs. That's it. That...
Yeah. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. It's just like I'm deciding. I know you're looking more for Winston stuff here, and you know we've said a lot of diva things, and I really don't think diva bombs are going to be the best use of our time.
Suiting up.
The payload is approaching its
Yeah, so they don't have their Bastion anymore. Using this to drive off ball, that's totally fine. It's effectively using missiles for heal. I'm not going to complain about that. The magnification on this at this range doesn't matter for you.
Get through this.
Your hog doesn't need your help. In fact, usually I want you and your hog playing in different places. Like, I understood, I didn't hate the, hey, my hog cooked something, I'm going to matrix it so that it doesn't get, you know, so that my hog doesn't get slept, so that there reduces some healing coming in, things like that, etc. when there's an Ana on the other team. But this, I'm going to jump over here to join my hog type thing. Like, you're both off tanks, and when you're both off tanks, it's even more important that you guys are controlling different angles and you sort of have a concave on the opponents. If I look at that, like, you both being over here, it's not threatening enough. Your hog doesn't need help with this, and you don't have protection for your backline. Like, you're protecting another off tank, and that's like, how would I describe that? I don't think I'm going to describe that further. I think I'd just say your off angles are going to be more important when you're playing double off tank because you're both more offensive threatening tanks than, say, a Reinhardt, for example. So, like, if you stacked two Reinhardts on top of each other, that actually doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world, right? Like, think of how much brawling power that is. But you wouldn't want to stack a Diva and a Hog on top of each other because you look at that and you're both sort of directional damage, right? You're both sort of like, we have a area of effect that we impact. Like, if we look at this, let's say you're here and you're Diva, you can shoot your missiles, and you have a pretty big range, we'll say, of what you cover with your defense matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Hog, your hook is sort of your same thing. Your range that you cover, that you can sort of protect your team with, that you can threaten with, that you can do stuff with. And, you know, both of you threatening the same space with that isn't very powerful, and you don't need to protect each other. Like, you have defense matrix to protect yourself. Hog has to take a breather to protect himself. You don't need to be really protecting each other. You need to be split where you're taking better map control when you're playing double off tank like this.
Makes sense.
I'm glad it does, because that was not my best explanation, Jeff. It's fine. It's good. It was worth sacking your mech for, both because you got the denial and because you had a decent chance of finishing him when he was discorded in half. Yay, we're back on Monkey.
Coming through.
Okay.
seconds remaining.
You have bubble, but you don't have the resources to go do anything. Yeah, okay.
Countdown to defensive victory in
Leave. You shouldn't have dropped down here. Leaping on this was potentially okay, but like you immediately need to be going back here for this mega. You don't have any reason to be following here.
This will
Yeah.
protect us.
You for leaving there is why you spent your bubble, and you're not going to have your bubble until basically the round's over. Overtime.
10 seconds remaining.
Hold out a little longer, and we're done.
Very up.
Okay, so if we look at this composition, I know that you just lost your Zenyatta, but if we look at this composition, there's a monkey, there's a tracer. Okay, if we look at your composition, you've got a Sombra and an Ashe. I'm just thinking this through for a second. I don't love the peel dive. I don't love the peel dive in this situation. I think it's, yeah, you guys have the Briggs. I think this is wrong and that you should actually be on their back line rather than peeling here, but it's not terrible. And you did lose your Zen and your Briggs wasn't here, so I'll live. Let's rewind just a touch. It's just a miscontrol of the jump. Oh. Here I am microing over something that's gonna have zero difference. Okay, do we get more Winston in the attack round here?
Imagination
We do.
is
Ready
Excellent.
for battle.
Excellent. So just to go over, because I think that's probably what we'll end up seeing of Diva, just be more aware that if you picked Diva to counter the Bastion, that what you're looking to do is make sure you're really ready to hard int on that Bastion, and you're ready to do it when your team is ready to hard int. Because you're not expecting to win a long, drawn-out fight against the Bastion with your defense matrix and its Gatling gun, etc. You're looking to go, hey, denying Bastion value for 2 seconds while my whole team ints means his team just loses. That's what you're looking to do, and you didn't really do any of that on the defensive round there. You denied him value for like a second and a half while your Junkrat tire got him, and that was sort of it. So like you want to be looking for that, and you're sort of going, yeah, we'll bully out other people that take position, but I mostly want to be holding my cooldowns. I want to be hyper aware of my team is. I want to be hyper aware of the Bastion is. Those are the 7 players that matter to me right now. And then you go when your team can do it. Okay.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
I wouldn't drink.
Attackers. Ready for battle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Moving up. Escort the payload.
Got payload, I'm moving out.
I like that you paused for a moment there to wait for your team to catch up a little bit, but you're still early on this challenge. Because you're going to challenge this and you're going to have to use your bubble. Okay, now that your hog's gone, you can. You did block the Discord. Okay, good.
very tough.
Sight, that's fine. Why is that worth jumping on?
Well, because I saw our Echo was pushing in,
Mhm.
and then I saw the translocator there, and I was thinking I could body block the soldier there.
Okay.
And then by the time I get there, possibly my bubble will be off cooldown.
Yep. I don't actually think that your bubble will be off cooldown, and if you body block the soldier, I will be very surprised. But I think it's still worth it, because I think you will break the translocator by landing, and I think, well, you won't get a 50 damage land, you'll get like a 30 damage land plus melee, so like a 70 damage land, and I expect your Echo is going to hit a shot on this or continue to chase this. So this is good, especially if you overjump a little bit, because this soldier is more likely to try and run this way, right? So if we try and jump
Right.
behind the soldier, but still in a place where, we do any damage to the translocator, that's going to be good. And if he's not paying any attention to us, it'll even knock him a little bit towards our Echo, which would be great. So yeah, good thinking. Yep. This is early. So I actually like you jumping over to here. This is good. But my thing is your Echo left for some reason. She shouldn't have. And your Ashe isn't going to, can't really help where this team is, right? So you're going, hey, let me jump in and sort of fight this group. And you just wanted to jump over here because you wanted to sort of have high ground. This wasn't a good spot for you. So you want to go, yeah, let me get back to high ground. But you're happy to sort of wait here rather than use your bubble cooldown and let your team take more aggressive positioning because your team isn't in this at all, right?
Yeah.
Cool. This is fine.
Damn it. Excuse me for
I heard that Anna used her sleep, and I figured she was a little bit further in the cave.
Okay. Your team's a little more in it now. I'm gonna be honest. I probably would have just said hop right back up here and keep doing your work from here. But this is reasonable. Yeah, you got it.
Then I got greedy here.
You definitely did. I was looking at that last jump and I'm going, wait, why? Now you're gonna get hacked and hogged and all that jazz. Your team still has an even or better chance of winning this. Good. But yeah, I mean, you recognize that you got greedy there, and that's all that we can ask.
Science.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Excuse me for dropping
Flight routine activated.
That's one small step.
Why would you be here?
I was thinking I needed to get on high ground, but
Sure.
I realized this right here would be a mistake because I'm opening myself up
Yep.
to just taking damage.
This high ground? Absolutely. You start battling for this corner, and if they push you out, so be it. This high ground, there's just no reason to be here. This high ground? Sure. Much the same thing. Up here? Maybe. This is just you're opening yourself up exactly to be poked out when your team is nowhere near being in a place to be ready to take this fight. And you're just gonna have to hard leap back to your team.
Have my thanks.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so now you could go back to that first high ground where you started. Yep. Didn't need to drop here. Didn't need to drop here at all. We're perfectly happy. You're actually doing a better job of scaring them off from coming in by being up here than you are on cart. Even if you're making the cart go a little faster, the speed boost from an extra person on it is pretty minor. Yeah, it's pretty darn minor. So you could have stayed here, and then you'll probably transition over to here once your team actually rounds the corner, which you'll probably do anyways. Well. I don't know why you'd even peek at that. Like, you can't zap them from up here. Was this just to get scouting information to figure out how many there were? Like, what was this?
Yeah, I was looking to see like maybe I could drop on them or maybe they weren't looking at me.
Okay.
See what they were.
Sure. I think it's too likely that, you saw one of them drop, so you know one of them is going to be paying attention up there. And if there's more than one, and you should expect there to be, even if they're not all three right here, even if one's over here, two are back here, you know that you just got 2 eliminations on them, and they retreated somewhat, so they're going to be in this general area. So there really isn't any scenario where you want to jump in and take the 1vx, even if it's 1v like 1.5, 1v2, 1v2.5, because like there's a Sombra right here, and there's an Anna over here, and maybe there's something else over here, etc. Because you're not going to be able to get the elim on the one before the others come to assist, even if they weren't this tightly clumped, right?
Right. I
So
see.
this really just becomes the only thing, I don't mind peeking for a moment just to go, okay, I literally want to know what's here, what the positionings are, so that I can properly stage my dive for 3 seconds from now. But any sort of peek, there was never going to be a chance that you could drop into this, or never going to be a real chance that you could drop into this, because it was always a case of, why would you want to go in, be very, very unlikely to get the elimination, and be spending your barrier and your health, and then ultimately your jump back to get out, and then the team's carts gets to here and you're not ready to go in yet because you're at half or less health, no barrier, just use jump pack. You get the idea. You're just not ready when your team is then ready to go.
I see.
Okay, And conceptually, yes, going behind opposing teams is good, and your team is closer to being ready here. They're not actually ready. They're about a second and a half out, closer to being ready. But this was a case where you're not actually jumping behind the enemy, because this is where more enemies come from, and you should know that you just got 2 eliminations, that should be coming back any second now, right? So what you did is you actually put yourself in the middle of the enemies for one thing, which is, it looks like it was officially the soldier who clicked the damage. That was from here, and that would have come out from behind you. Yeah, so what you're looking at here is you're putting yourself in the middle of the enemies, and you don't really want to do that. You generally, Winston occasionally will do that, but generally you want to turn your enemies around. So you're doing a, hey, I'm behind the enemies and some number of the enemies turn to look at me. You're not doing a, let me put myself in the middle of the enemies. Sometimes you are, but those are a little more specific. Like I want to block my Anna from the opposing Anna from being able to put heals into a tank in front of her, etc. The general rule is you're sort of turning all of them to look in a different direction, and you're definitely doing it when your team is ready to engage. This was a very aggressive jump here. Cool?
Right. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Onward and up. Ultimate ready.
Lifting off.
That's fine. You can bully for space here. Good. No problem.
I've got the payload and I'm moving out.
Okay, so you can see where your team is. You can see where your team is. You can see the enemy team. You can see what level of engaged they are. They're popping trans, so they must be pretty engaged. Overjumped that slightly, but that's okay. And she didn't have sleep. Lucky you. Okay. So overall, very good engage there. Again, I think you overjumped there slightly. You could do what we are talking about, which is, hey, I want to be past Deanna because I want it to be a case of she can't heal her team because my bubble's between her and her team, and I get that. But I think what you're going to find is usually you do want to end up behind her so that she has a case of, well, if I'm running from this monkey, I'm running into my team's front line, which makes me more accessible to your team's front line. That's more often what you want to go with there. But, it's a little bit of a tomato thing, but it's not quite. Like it most of the time, unless you have a specific purpose of, no, I'm cutting this off because my team is running a Reaper Junkrat that is just going to burst her front line while she's cut off, you're going to want to go, no, let me force her into the front line where she is vulnerable.
I seem to have. I could use some healing.
Cloning muscle ready.
I feel great.
This is okay. Let me see where you jumped from.
Adjusting angle of attack.
I could use some healing.
Yeah, that's roughly the right place to move with this jump.
Cloning muscle
I
ready.
feel great.
Duplication.
Barrier up.
No. We just go back over here and let our team heal us. Like, we don't need to use bubble. We don't need to stay here. There's no reason you need to stay here at all, and bubble is, a big, long cooldown.
I think I was getting nervous near the end here.
Okay. Not a big deal. I do like that you've taken this spot. Just clear the Discord. Fine by me. And now you're going to circle in. Your team is here. Circle in from the left and do your thing. Fine.
Barrier up.
Nope. You don't get him anymore. You don't win anymore. Good. Have you checked to see if the Mega's back, or are you going to get enough healing here? We'll call it that. Well, you know. And this should just be cleanup. Okay, so the big things that we're going to see is I do want you to better track where your teammates are. Like, it's a big deal, especially, we saw it actually as the bigger problem when you were playing Diva, but it's more often a bigger problem for Winston than it is Diva, and we did see it in your Winston play too, when you're going like, oh no, I'm here. Well, we'll call that bubble usage, because that's the other thing I want to cover. Where you're doing the, oh, I'm going to take this space. No, there's no way your team's ready to commit, and there's no way your team's going to be ready to commit in the next 2 seconds. They're all the way back here. So, like, you got to be thinking, if I'm opening myself up, if I'm doing more than just a quick peek to scout, if I'm doing more than bullying someone else to get proper staging position, if I'm doing something like this, it's because I'm going to commit right now. And you just have to, as the main tank, you are the person who has the single most responsibility for, is my team ready to take this engagement? So what I'd like you to do is a little more checking back on, hey, is my team ready for this? Hey, is my team ready?
Okay.
No, etc. This one was very good, where you circled through here, etc., and you kind of went, okay, my team is ready, and I know they're ready because they're transcendencing. But you know, that's a big obvious sign, your team transcendencing, that they're ready for it. So you need to be able to do it with more subtle signs, and those more subtle signs are frequently going to be their positioning. How close are they to the enemy team? You know the map geometry. They could be here and the enemy team is here, and that could still be a good 2 or 3 seconds from them fighting. But if they're here and the enemy team is here, they're already fighting, right?
Yeah.
So really just having that good grasp of where your team is and what your team being ready to engage looks like is going to help, you know, especially with that Diva stuff that we saw against the Bastion, but it's also going to help with your Winston quite a bit here. And then the other thing that we talk about is, if you are doing a better job of that, I think you're going to find yourself in less aggressive positions where you feel the need to just pop your bubble standing here and things like this. Like, this you could consider an aggressive position, but this is great. You're never going to get your bubble forced. The worst that's going to happen to you if you're standing here is you're going to get your leap forced, and you're just going to leap back to this mega, right? But aggressive positions
Right.
like this, where you go, oh no, I have to pop my bubble. You didn't have to pop your bubble. You should have left. But the reason you felt you had to pop your bubble is because you're in a position that's like hyper aggressive, we'll say, before your team is ready. So like really having that before I leave, you know, moderately staged positions to go to fully staged positions. Do you know what I say when I say stage? I'm talking staging a dive. Are you familiar with
Like
that term?
prepped.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like you're going from space that your team controls into neutral space, and then you're going, okay, and now I'm going to get a little more aggressive. Like now this is our controlled space, but this is back into more neutral space, right? Like this, your team pretty thoroughly controls. No one has opposing sightlines on you, etc. Your Ashe is also here. Your team has sort of sightlines on you, but this is neutral space. You can't
right.
hold this for an extended period of time, but you might need to dive from neutral space. So that's fine, but you're going to get chipped down. The way a poke team fights it, you know, the way a poke DPS fights a dive, the way a poke hero fights a dive hero is they are poking them and getting as much of a lead as they can while the hero is staging. So you need your staging time to be small, and you need to not extend your staging time by staging way early, is basically what we're
Right.
saying there. And then poking you is exactly what forces your bubble cooldown. You're like, oh shoot, I've got to pop my bubble. That's because you're getting poked early, and you're getting poked early because you can be back here this whole time. You had all the information you needed. You were happy to be, no, I'll be here, and it's totally fine because if you guys come this way, I'll try to fight you, blah, 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 and I can leave. If you guys go main to stop the cart, which my team is free pushing right now, that's fine. I can just wait and then either zap you from above as you walk by and my team can see you, or drop behind you and get on your Ana again, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay, so I want less of this out in the open staging, and you're going to do that. You're going to accomplish that by being more aware of where your team is. You're going to be conscious about switching from what we'll call space you control to neutral space, and that's also going to save you your bubble cooldown. The other thing we're going to say is I do want you to think about your bubble cooldown more, but I'm actually hopeful that if you address this other thing first, the bubble cooldown, most of that problem will go away, if you follow what I'm saying.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Sounds
Um,
good.
so do you have questions, anything that you want to get into on like, hey, how do I do this? What's my tank partner? What's the best way to use primal? Any questions in general you want to get into?
Yeah, like when it comes to primal usage, like obviously the mechanics are something that I'm struggling with. Like,
Hmm.
is there a way to like practice that
Yeah.
to get better?
Definitely. So you should go into, I don't think I have a workshop code for it anymore, but you can create your own very easily. You're going to increase ult gain to, 1,800, whatever it is, percent that it lets you. You are not going to increase the ult duration. You are going to make it the normal duration. And you're not going to increase health, but you're going to make enemies respawn, like, immediately within 2 seconds, whatever, and you're going to put a bunch of different 200 HP heroes. So, that's going to be,
Uh,
you can put a McCree in there, but you'll put in like an Anabot, a Zen bot, a Lucia bot, a McCree bot, and you're actually not going to have them use their abilities to start. You're just going to basically disable them and just have them walk around, if you follow what I'm saying. And then you're
okay.
literally going to practice, okay, here's a fresh target. Here's a fresh target. Let me jump at it, land my jump, hit it with my swing damage, because the order that you want to go is you want to go, I jump, I land, and then I swing. And you want to go, hey, I land and they're getting booped by my land, and my swing is going to connect pretty much instantly when I swing, but I do need to be fast on that swing because if I wait too long, my landing boop will send them too far away. So those are close together, but it is land, then swing in terms of entry order, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
And so you're going to do that, and then you're going to land swing again, and you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to know, well, okay, if I just land swung on it twice, and it's not either eliminated or just a hair from eliminated, I probably did something wrong. I probably missed a swing on it, or I more likely missed landing damage on it, whereas I hit it with my swing before I landed. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And you can do that, and it'll take you like, it'll take you no time to get your primal right back whenever someone goes down. And I would put like a Lucio or something in there so that they're getting healed back up, because again, you don't want to go, oh, I got it. We'll now do it again, and I don't know if I got it or not. You would love the, Lucio to sort of like heal them back up automatically so you can go, okay, now they're back at full. Now let me go do it again. Because you're looking to go, hey, can I combo these 200 HP heroes? And I would
Okay.
just say, in the beginning, you might spend an hour, 2 hours doing that, etc. After that, you can do that literally like a half hour once a week, and you'll keep the rhythm in terms of what the combo stuff is to make that work.
Cool. Sounds great.
Cool, cool. Any other questions?
I feel like sometimes I'm just very inconsistent with Winston. Like at least at high plat, low diamond.
Hmm.
Um, like I
So
feel like
two things are probably accounting for that. One is, hey, engagement timing, which we kind of
yeah,
just talked about, where you'll probably running into situations where you're going in too early, or like you're doing what we saw here, except committing a little harder, where you go over and then you're like, oh, you leave and you're like, hey, I didn't get value, I'm just not getting anything done. Well, yeah, you're jumping into a 3v1 when your team isn't ready to help you. The other thing is probably hero selection. Winston has a lot of people who make his life very difficult, right? So
yeah.
you can fix the first, and we've talked about how to fix the first, and that helps a lot. The other is going to be, hey, if they are running, Reaper Bastion against you, you're not going to have a good time. That's how that works. If they're like, I'm gonna run Reaper Bastion Roadhog, you're what now? Like, so that unfortunately, now you can, none of that actually makes you swap from Winston in truth, because in an organized setting, you just kind of go, that's okay. What do I care? Those heroes are super exploitable. You're going to run Bastion against us. My off tank and DPS are going to absolutely chew you apart. Oh, you're running Reaper against us? That's fine. I wasn't going to go anywhere near you anyways. Again, my DPS is going to chew you apart because you have no range, etc. And my diva is going to just laugh at you. Like all that stuff ends up being true. But in ladder play, as you're climbing, I'm going to be honest, if you're not playing with a tank partner or with a DPS partner, you are sometimes going to just have an easier time going, fine, I'll swap. And that Bastion was a good example where you did that.
Right. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no problem. Um, I think that's what I saw here. We talked about both of those. We talked about the thing and how that carries over to Diva. What is your tank hero pool in general, just so I know? Is it
Um,
what's the Diva? Is it everything? What do you play?
Primarily Winston
Sure.
and ladder, but sometimes I'll flex to like Diva.
Okay.
I use a little bit of Hog, but I'm not a fan of him. Just his kit
Sure.
in
Sure.
general.
I mean,
Not a fan of Sigma.
Winston Diva will work. You've got a main and an off tank there, and you've also got a hero who works very well when a bunch of Winston counters are coming out. So I'm not hating on that at all. Do you just play solo on ladder? Do you do any organized play, anything like that with a team?
Just solo on ladder.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Um, then yeah, that's probably what I've got. I'm happy to answer more questions if you have them. At this point, I don't think it makes sense to load up another VOD and take a look because we'd be looking at like first team fight type thing. But
Yeah.
anything else there question wise?
No, I think engagement timings, like you said, bubble usage, and then overall like hero selection as far as like knowing when I'm being hard countered and stuff.
I wouldn't
Can't
worry
get
about that
value.
one too much. Like, unless it is super obvious to you, and it doesn't matter what your team is saying, it doesn't matter that. It's basically like, are they running, if they're running Bastion and we don't have a Diva, fine, I'll run Diva. If they're running Reaper and Roadhog and Torb, fine, I'll swap. Like, playing around one Reaper, no problem. Playing around a Roadhog and a Torb, you can do it. Playing around a Bastion, probably just swap. But if they like start
Yeah.
stacking them, sure, go ahead. Um, the big thing is going to be that engagement timing and going to be understanding that, oh, hey, I shouldn't be staging yet. I should be staging now because my team is potentially ready. And literally just good engagement timing will easily carry you into Masters. So, yeah. Even now, even with Winston where he is, you can do that. Okay,
Right.
then that's what I've got. So I'm going to shut the recording off here. And